Hello, welcome to 25 Cents, a video game podcast. I am Chris.
And I'm Nick. Each episode we'll be talking about the games we've tried, other games we keep going back to, and what we think might be great games to check out if you've got kids.
You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts or on the web at Goodstuff.network. Hey, Nick. My very spaced out intro, trying to time it just right.
No, we'll get it right. We'll get it right, by episode 40 or something, maybe.
Yeah. This is episode 36 of your 25 Cents video game podcast. Please deposit your quarter at the door. I guess we could rework our intro just to be more on theme. But you had mentioned, actually, we were talking on Discord about highlighting the corners, making it more official, just in case people aren't aware. Do you want to give a quick rundown of our corners and why we? I don't remember why we called them corners. That was another podcast I think I heard that used to use corners.
I don't remember. It's already lost to the mists of time. But yeah, we have four corners that we talk about. We talk about console corner, so kind of news in the world of consoles. I think originally it was Switch corner, but we have other consoles that we play.
Our corners are flexible.
Or at least that Chris plays. The corners are flexible.
Updated, renovated.
Yes. Yeah. We're constantly under construction here at 25 Cents. We have PC Corner, so it's loosely sort of games that we play on, PC, Mac, or big news in the world of gaming and streaming. Apple Corner, which of course is sort of our original corner when we had just the one, which is mostly Apple Arcade and a tiny bit complaining about Apple TV hardware. And then we have Tabletop Corner because as the show has gone on, we've realized one of the things we spend a lot of time with our kids is playing board games and card games and the like.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while we get a little listener feedback that we fit in at the end or work into one of the corners.
Yeah.
So that's our show.
And hopefully if you're out there and you want to send feedback, we try to make it obvious, but yeah, we are reachable on Twitter, 25C Arcade, or even the emails, chris@lamonproductions.ca. You can email me directly. And if you're okay with whatever you say being read on the air, or just have feedback for the show, we'd love to hear from you. And then the patreon.com/goodstuff is how you can join the Discord with the other fantastic Discord members of the Good Stuff community. So Goodstuff.network. Don't listen to the Goodstuff.fm anymore. That domain is not healthy for a variety of reasons. So let's jump into console corner on that note. What have you been doing?
Not a whole lot on the Switch lately. We did allow our Just Dance Unlimited subscription that we paid for last year to expire. I think we just haven't been playing it as much. And, the game still works without it. You just have the original set of like 40 songs. You don't get the continuous updates of current pop songs. So that, maybe we would turn it back on again, but at this point, it just hasn't been a primary interest as far as home entertainment. I think my son is just fine dancing to whatever music is on as inspired without being guided by a game at this moment.
The competitive side isn't as necessary, just the good excuse to move the feet.
Yeah. And the other cool music thing I saw in the console world is someone has made a hardware device called the Super MIDI Pack, which is it's an SNES cartridge form factor that you plug in to your original Super Nintendo or Super Famicom, and then you plug it into whatever MIDI controller you want over USB, and it allows you to use like your keyboard, your music keyboard, to control the sound chip in the Super Nintendo and then record. So you can, very, very easily manage your chiptune generation with not simulating it in a computer, but using the original sound controller in the hardware, and without needing to get into the programming of said sound chip.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty cool.
That's fascinating. And $99 US, it looks like, but and sales tax, shipping, etc. Obviously, and things. But plus finding a Super Nintendo somewhere if you don't have one.
Yes, having a working Super Nintendo may actually be the more challenging hardware preservation aspect of using such a device.
That's really cool, though. That's fun. What was the video game auction you had mentioned here? I didn't.
Oh
What was the
yeah,
link?
just I.
Oh yes,
There
I
was a
remember.
record set for I think wasn't it? It was like a Zelda cartridge. Or sorry, a copy of Super Mario 64 was sold for $1.56 million, beating out a copy of Legend of Zelda that sold for $870,000. So I don't know what kind of vintage video game cartridge futures are being invested in, but somebody's moving money around, and it's weird.
Yeah, well, one of my clients, I've seen the back of his video, the client, like the podcast videos they do. He has a collector's copy of, I'm assuming the original. It looks like the original GoldenEye for Nintendo, whatever system that was, the
64, yeah.
64. Yeah, so he has that in a special case or whatever that he's using. So, yeah, Marla on the chat said, "What in the damn hell? Why pay that much?" I guess you're hoping either it's like a collector's item you put up on your wall, or you're hoping it's going to appreciate in value. I don't know. That's bonkers.
I think it's one of those hot potato things where, and maybe there's some, questionable money changing hands that you just like with art auctions, right? You are moving money around in via rare objects.
Yeah, yeah. It's that, or you buy a penis rocket like Jeff Bezos did. I guess it's sort of when you got that kind of money, what's 1.5 million to spend on a copy of a Super Mario?
Yeah, it's a rounding error pretty quickly.
Exactly.
I mean, I can't exactly talk about collectibles when it comes to the Lego department, but I play with them. They are a toy. I don't do any of the sealed in box stuff.
Yeah,
I remember seeing a while ago at, I think it was BrickCon. There was a sealed in box version of a set I got in like 1999, going for $1,000,
right.
because it's not made anymore. And it's like, well, I opened it and played with it and had fun with it. So, joke's on you, man.
You win. Yeah, collector's items are only worth as
Anyway.
much as some poor sap is willing to pay. Definitely. Yeah. The one thing I want to note just for myself to say it out loud, because I keep forgetting, is Hades, the game you've loved on the Switch, is coming to Game Pass, and I think maybe it's actually not till September. You can preload it on Xbox Game Pass, and I came back from holidays and thought, oh, I think that's there now. You load it up, and it looks like it's loading, and then it says, you're here too early. Come back again in September 15th or whatever it is. So it's a little tease,
Yeah,
but anyways.
it's a great one. And I should get back to that one. I have not played in a few months, but it's a really great action game, as I've talked about on the show before.
Did you wrap it? Like, is there a finish that you got to?
I didn't actually finish it. No. There is an ending. And I hadn't unlocked all of the character stories either. So yeah, I just kind of got busy with work, and have been playing more like little arcade games as well, which we'll talk a little bit about in
Yeah.
Apple Corner.
Yeah.
So have you? Yeah, we didn't get our Switch Pro for last episode. We got the OLED Switch slightly improved, but a lot of people have been drawing comparisons to the new Steam Deck that was just announced. Is this as we get into PC Corner, is this a game device that is of any interest to you or your family?
I don't think so. Not yet. Like my kids definitely have not discovered the whatever you want to call that, the library that is Steam. And so I have like a ton of games, like many of us do, that I've never even played. And so there's definitely an element of like, well, if I bought this, I know I've seen lots of people say, oh, well, I'll buy this and I'll finally be able to actually play all those games that I never get to. But then I think about the fact that I have a Switch sitting here already with games that I haven't played and gotten to, even though that's just as portable as a Steam device. And so I was tempered, I guess, in my enthusiasm to pick one up. But I'm excited that something like this exists, and I hope it sticks around as a meaningful platform for Steam, because I think this is definitely sort of the future of cloud. Download the game as you need it, and then delete it and download something else. But what are your thoughts on it, and is it something that's tempting you?
It's a pretty interesting device. I would say, given my experience with the Steam Link, which I think I've mentioned a few times, I'm a little worried about sort of game compatibility type issues. How well will certain games adapt to the small screen or some of the more unusual controls. I would say it doesn't look like it's super comfortable to use in hand. Like you'd more likely want to kind of kickstand it and use a wireless controller. I suspect. Um, I'm really curious how they're handling the sort of power and heat curve to get the performance they're claiming in such a small device. Um, because it is, I think it is running an um, an x86 chip and SteamOS, right? So
Yeah.
um, uh, curious how that from AMD, the chip they have, what that looks like in a lot of games. Now, granted, the smaller screen probably means you can get away with running things at lower resolution, which means you need a lot less performance to push things. I think I saw they're talking about supporting real time ray tracing for certain games. So there are certain areas where they're kind of doing some stuff that usually you can only do on really high end, very hard to find graphics hardware. But again, if you're driving a small mobile device, you don't have to have quite as many uh, chip pipelines running everything,
Yeah.
architecturally speaking.
Yeah, and it looks like the even just heavy, like I think that's what you're alluding to, even just awkward to hold for a long period of time. And I
Yeah,
saw
at a
some comments.
glance.
So we'll see. I mean, I'm sure definitely the nerds in the various discords and stuff that I'm a part of were excited
Hmm.
to get on the pre-order list and frustrated that they couldn't, at the usual sort of launch day, or not
Right.
launch day, but pre-launch, pre-buy jitters or whatever. And I saw one comment about how they tried to Valve, the company behind Steam, had tried to limit pirates or people buying it to like list it on eBay or whatever. And in the end, you still go to eBay and there's a whole bunch of Steam pre-order whatever things for sale on eBay, and
Probably
they
from
always find a
people who
way.
don't actually have one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So starting at 500 Canadian, it feels a little pricey, I guess, too. I mean, it is like for, I guess, for the average parent who maybe thinks of a Switch as being top end, which I think Canadian they top out at 500. I think would be 450, something like that, if it depending on
Hmm.
the various bundles. So starting at 500 and on up for a handheld device, I feel like is going to be a tough sell for the like preteen, not with their own money kind of crowd. But maybe that's not really a
Right.
big part of their supply or yeah pre-order list, anyways. So yeah, it definitely didn't register on my kids' radar at all. Like in terms of their friends talking about it or anything like that, it wasn't a point of discussion at all. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
it definitely was covered in all of the game channels and all the discords and slacks I'm in.
Hmm.
And most of the discussion was kind of centered on, huh, interesting, but who is this for, right? Because
Yeah.
the I think the usual Steam PC gamer is more likely to have a pretty significant home rank, but maybe they want to be mobile and are envious of their Switch peers.
Yeah, I think that's. I
But
mean, it's a good play for Valve to be in
yeah.
that space because that's. I mean, even like we've seen Netflix announcing they're going to get into gaming somehow as well, and it's kind of like either the one podcast I edited where they were talking about this from a financial perspective. It's more like either you're Netflix and you submit to the fact that you're going to be on Epic Games platform in Fortnite as some with your IP on in Fortnite, or you're going to build your own gaming platform and compete with Fortnite and or support Fortnite or whatever it ends up being, exactly how that all works. But and so I think that's kind of everyone sees this space now as like we need to be in this, and
Yeah.
that's what's just gonna be a battle for for hardware over which space you're gonna be in. So
Yeah, and in particular, getting to those subscriptions or having a storefront, right? Like in the case of Steam, like
yeah,
you probably don't even care so much about selling the hardware as you do about finding a way to connect yourself to people's wallets, and that's the business they're in.
yeah, yeah.
So what have you did mention your kids have been playing some other stuff lately with Roblox?
Yeah, our youngest got into Roblox with a friend, and definitely like it's an okay game. I think it's one of those like what is that, polygonal, or I forget what the graphic styling is.
Voxel.
Voxel, that's the one. Yeah, like it's like Minecraft light, very
Hmm.
rudimentary graphics, and that's fine. Like it doesn't they don't complain about the graphics obviously or whatever, but so it loads quick. It's easy for multiple platforms to have support for it. iPad or old computer can play it just fine. We noticed like even when she started, her friend right away was like, just ignore the chat. Don't look at the chat. That was like the warning from her fellow 8-year-olds, who'd like, we got hacked once, and so just don't look at the chat is what she was told. And and she's been playing with friends only, and so then the last couple of times I happened to catch her playing, not catch her, but like was watching her playing, and she's like talking with random people in the chat, and like, we had to talk about what that was like, and comparing it to like, it's okay to go to the playground and play with your friends, but if you went to the playground and played with a 35-year-old random person, that wouldn't necessarily be as okay. He might be fine and nice, but we're just, at this stage. Anyways, so it is kind of like a weird world, and I guess you can set up your own server, private server and stuff, much like Minecraft. So but the wide open chat thing, which is much less, I don't know, prevalent, common, whatever, in something like Minecraft, Fortnite especially, it's not really a thing that's used much. It just seems left wide open to, weirdos, hackers, etc. And apparently, according to one article that I'll link to, is a playground for fascists, but I haven't, that seems to be the whole internet. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Unfortunately, the unmoderated internet tends to kind of create those locuses of bad folks gathering.
Everybody else I talked to about not PAX, sorry, that's the next thing we're going to talk about, but Roblox was like, had that like sort of this cautionary thing of just, it's fun. My kid loves it. You just gotta, it's more like you gotta check in with them a little more often on what's actually going on, who they're playing with, what world or what gaming servers they're on, and things like that. Because it's a few clicks into some deep puddles, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. So
you have to set the boundaries and expectations of sort of what's okay, and kind of not cutting them off, but building that instinct of like, hey, if you see something that seems off, like just leave, don't participate, don't join in, back away, let me know, etc. Kind of helping that instead of saying here's what's bad, here's what's good, you just kind of give them the tools to determine that on their own, which is tricky at age 7, 8.
You definitely want to prepare them for future issues it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get easier to deal with for sure as they get older. But and so you don't want to just completely shut it all off necessarily, but which sometimes is tempting, just to unplug the internet and go back to playing dice games.
And there are times where that is the appropriate answer, right?
Yeah. Anyway, going the other way of more video games, did you watch or attend in some way PAX East online?
Yeah, so PAX, a long running video game convention. I've attended PAX West on I think 3 occasions, PAX East 4 times. But then obviously last year with COVID, they had to move things online because large gatherings of people, bad idea. So PAX East this year, which would normally be in Boston in the spring, just happened this past weekend as an online thing. So a lot of it was just streamed on various Twitch channels. But they have a really nice website gathering all of the developers in a virtual expo hall, so you can kind of walk around. And then there's a Discord. So I did PAX Online last fall, and they took a similar idea here where you get access to the Discord, and there's lots of little mini games you can play, as well as discussion channels for each of the streams that you're watching, and looking for group channels if you want to play particular games. There was one I saw for Hearthstone. You could find someone and exchange battle ID tags and then play each other, right? The main things that I always keep an eye out at PAX, whether I'm in person or now most recently online, is the indie games. That's always what I'm most excited about. So they usually highlight a couple of really the games that are very much in the style of the games we talk about a lot on this show, where sort of small, unusual experiences, really artfully created, and not from the big studios. So the indie showcase, which you're scrolling through on the stream right now, is sort of their replacement for the indie mega booth, which started at PAX several years ago and has expanded to other conventions, but they are offline during COVID. They just didn't want to organize anything or spend the overhead on doing anything. of the indie showcase, the ones that jumped out at me, our favorite from arcade, Mini Motorways, is there, and that's
Hmm.
coming out on Steam, I think next week or in the next few coming days. And then Imagine Earth looked like a really cool, 4X civilization style game with this 3D planetoid imagery. And one of the main game mechanics in watching the video is, so you're doing the typical thing of like colonizing and exploiting resources, but the challenge is to not repeat the mistakes of Earth. So basically, on every planet you try to build a base on, you have to avoid completely destroying the ecosystem again. So kind of an interesting twist on the 4X genre there, which is one of my favorites, but of course tends to encourage uh, the exploitation X in that 4X, right?
Right.
Um, so lots of good looking games there to highlight, mostly for Windows PC. Um,
Is
attended a couple
Imagine Earth?
panels. Yeah.
Is that on Apple Arcade, or did I see it somewhere else? Maybe I'm thinking of something else. There was a similar style game that I thought was coming to Apple Arcade. Maybe I
I
could
mean,
be
there
thinking of.
was that
Maybe.
that
This looks more complicated than it would
Doodle
be.
God universe. The little
That's what.
planetoid in that looks kind of like
Yeah,
this.
sorry, that's what I'm mixing up. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, we can talk about that a little bit in Apple Corner because my son has tried that out. Um,
yeah, yeah.
but
Marla in the chat just said, "I love the glimpses of indie games between streams. I added a lot to my wish list, but I need the time to actually play." That's definitely
yeah, that's a
you and
great
me,
point,
all of
Marla,
us both.
because yeah, the sheer number of games that are available at any given time is astounding. And especially if you throw in like early access on Steam or some of the stuff that's free on itch.io.
Yeah,
I definitely rely on sort of tastemakers, at like panels at places like PAX to help guide me in those directions, right? Um,
yeah.
of the panels I attended, there were a couple of interesting ones. I watched Indies Uncovered by Rock Paper Shotgun. They highlighted it. They just kind of were streaming a couple of games they liked. So one was Demon Turf, which was this sort of hand drawn art style 3D platformer. Looked very hard in the vein of the original Super Mario 64 in terms of like how often you will fail the jump and fall to your doom. And then another one they had was Tunche, which looks kind of similar to a Hades like roguelike where you're going through. It's set in the Amazon and you're looking for this mysterious Tunche. It's by a Peruvian studio, and kind of like a side scrolling beat 'em up type
Hmm.
game. Looked kind of interesting. Um, then I attended Why We Need Wholesome Games. So I think we mentioned on a recent episode there was the Wholesome Games showcase or whatever they call it, and so this was a panel by that group, kind of talking about games that are cozy or wholesome and what that means. And the main focus they were talking about is sort of games that don't give you anxiety, right? Games that you play and feel calm. So some of those simulator games we were joking about last episode were on their list, where you're just like, yeah, I'm chill. I'm just running a gas station. I'm washing my car. I'm growing a garden, right?
Did
So
they? I just saw it go by Lawnmower Simulator. Did I? I
yeah,
don't know if I put this in the Good Stuff Discord, but so it feels like something in that vein where maybe they add
yes,
some more like time pressure stuff where the owner of the lawn is mad if you don't do it in a certain time or
yeah,
whatever. But it felt pretty chill, like sort of like farming simulator too.
yeah. And I mean, we're in a time in the world where those kind of escape games are maybe a little more fun than the traditional, power fantasy game of kill all the bad guys or whatever. That
Yeah.
you just want something a little more relaxing. Um, so that was an interesting conversation. And then another one was imagining better worlds through games, which actually featured two of the folks from Dino Polo Club that makes Mini
Mm.
Metro and Mini Motorways, and they were kind of talking about, it in a way they're talking about politics in games, but with a specific sort of more progressive angle of like how do you portray a world that is better than the world we're in certain ways, whether literally in the case of Mini Metro, where there's a great transit system, which doesn't really happen here in the United States,
No.
at least, or more representatively in terms of the kinds of characters and people who are in your story that maybe are more representative of the diversity of humanity, right? So that was another interesting conversation. Um, uh, Makes me think of like what appeals to me about Star Trek, right? Which is like a whole other podcast I could host. Um,
You and a few others on the internet. But yes,
yes, yeah, I think there might just be plenty of Star Trek podcasts
no
featuring a
worries.
white guy talking about how much they like Star Trek.
Yeah.
Um,
Did they come
yeah,
to, I'm just
so
curious, did they have like, so you quoted here letting the player come to their own conclusions. Did you have did they have sort of like, I guess, some conclusions as far as on the developer side of what they do that helps enable that or anything like that? Or is it kind of more just a general discussion of like how they've developed stuff, what they did?
Yeah, I
I'm
think
putting you
from
on the
the
spot, but
developer side, the main thing they were talking about is sort of making sure that you get the diversity of voices making the games, right? Because then you get the opportunity to sort of get those messages worked into the games about specific lived experiences that, the average or at least the historical stereotype of a game developer would not know how to talk about. So I think
yeah,
that's mostly what they're talking about, is like make the game that tells the story you want to tell,
right.
and support people in the industry who are from marginalized groups who aren't able to make games normally, or haven't been historically. I think there's been a pretty good resurgence in that area, especially with all of these independent platforms, but um, the big money is still in, you know square jaw gunman shooting all the aliens,
Square
right?
shotgun man, yeah.
um,
Exactly. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of demos you got listed, which we'll include in the show notes. So if somebody's, I don't know if there's any you want to quickly point out just to worth
yeah,
mentioning.
I think we talked about Skatebird on a previous
Yeah.
episode. It's
That-
it's what it says on the tin. It is a skateboarding game where you're a bird. It's silly fun. And then my son liked Midnight Protocol a lot, which was sort of a more board game like kind of hacking simulator. Where there's a story and you're connecting to computers and trying to like steal data and
oh,
um,
neat.
you
Yeah.
know, and it's got the kind of light side, dark side of white hat, black hat hacking. Like, are you a good guy or not?
Oh,
Um,
I got sound. Sorry.
and then yeah, Skyfleet didn't grab me, but it was cool because all of these were PAX Online demos on Steam. Some of them may still be available, but a few of them definitely had an exclusivity window during the convention. Um, yeah, there's a lot of games out there, and the Steam demo system. Obviously, as a Mac gamer, there's not a lot of the demos I can play, but there are
Hmm.
a few, and they're pretty fun. So that was my PAX experience. I think PAX West is supposedly happening in person here in Seattle in September. Definitely not going to a convention where I always catch a cold during a
Yeah, at the bare
global
minimum,
pandemic.
you're gonna.
So hopefully they'll be safe at that. But I'll stick to the online ones for now.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, that's where and Gas Station Simulator is also there. Is that where you're? I didn't
Oh,
realize that
so
was
that one
actually.
wasn't a demo. I just mentioned that one
Oh,
because
gotcha.
I think
Yeah.
it when we were talking in recent weeks about some of those games where it's like, well, I don't want to do my chores, but I'll do a simulated
Yeah.
chore in a game because that's more fun. Um, whether it's washing the car, running a gas station, or whatever.
Yeah, I guarantee you, I can get my kids to play Lawnmower Simulator quicker than I can get them to actually cut the lawn. That's for sure.
So life hack: just don't have a lawn. That's
Yeah,
yes. That's why I need Lawnmower Simulator. Is I
right.
miss it, right? I'm in the city.
Exactly.
I don't have a yard. Um,
And you definitely save a lot of money on just all the things to just to
yes,
even to like
maintenance and gas and
half-ass your grass, as it were. Okay. On that note, moving on to sorry Theo, if you happen to listen to this episode, maybe. Moving on to Apple Corner. I've completely skipped. I don't think I played anything in the last week on Apple on iOS, other than maybe some solitaire when I was having trouble sleeping or something. But what have you been playing?
Yeah, so it's often my evening, like right before bed kind of gameplay. Yeah, I had been playing that one new solitaire that we talked about last episode. my son and I are always kind of looking at some of the multiplayer games to kind of, especially the co-op ones where we can play together. So we
Hmm.
went back to an older release, Scrappers. And, it's kind of fun. We found it very tricky to do. There's like a thing in the game where you're supposed to like toss trash to each other to get more bonus points because you can then put more in at once. We found that very hard to coordinate, just skill level wise. Maybe it needs practice. Um, but yeah, the main thing both of us have been playing since it came out. Well, I think last week was Alto's Odyssey: Lost Cities. So before we dive into that, was there any other Apple stuff that you've been kind of dealing
Um,
with, mucking around with? I saw a few tweets in that area.
Yeah, definitely the Apple TV hardware was causing me grief. I think I've alluded to it a couple times on the episodes where just like frustratingly basic things of it'd be like a banner ad for, let's say, Ted Lasso season 2, but then the little thumbnail where you can actually click to go watch what you would assume would be Ted Lasso season 1 or more info about season 2 would be just some other random show and nothing to do with what you're watching. There was only one banner. You couldn't see more. It was a really frustrating experience just trying to even navigate to find like I think I said, For All Mankind. We've watched a season and a half of it, but I can't. It wouldn't show up anywhere in the user interface to like. I have to manually search for it, and that's the only way I could find it to watch the next episode. And then once we finish that episode, it would be like some other random show they would recommend us to watch next, even though there's clearly another episode of that show to watch. And what it sounds like is I kind of gathered from the non-responses and the folks they that responded is we had a bug or we had an issue, and so I thought I would just wipe the Apple TV, restart it, reinstall the iOS, tvOS, I guess, and so that's what I did this week, and that actually seemed to fix it. And then the new updates, whatever we're up to, 14, no,
14.7, I think I
14.7
saw.
is that? Yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot if they were all unified that way, but yeah, that also came out. But that was I'd done this before that came out, so I don't think that fixed anything. But right away after I reinstalled everything, logged in, did all this stuff. Now, like the shows are there right away. Even we had watched, we were rewatching season 1 of Ted Lasso, and it was like the next episode was queued up, ready to go. So I think just a weird bug that I was experiencing in terms of the hardware
Interesting.
or software, I guess, not the hardware. And we'll see. The one other weird issue is that our TV has never done this before, but with this new Apple TV, it was just randomly restarting. So like we were watching Loki the other night. 10 minutes into the episode, all of a sudden our TV shuts off and reboots. And then you're just like, but meanwhile, the Apple TV itself is still playing, right? So you kind of
Right.
pause the TV without being, or Apple TV. And so we'll see. We haven't watched enough to know for sure if that fixed this as well. Like it feels like our TV OS was just borked somehow, technical
Yeah.
term. And that's what was going on. So at any rate, I'm happy to have it working again.
That's good. Yeah, so it's like it was sending junk video or audio streams or something that your TV didn't like.
Yeah, and I did there's an HDMI test even in the Apple TV settings, and it said now like I did that after I restarted, so who knows? I don't remember if I did it beforehand. So, but it said everything's fine, so we'll see. But obviously things were wonky in terms of what was in there somehow tied to my Apple ID was all goofy and weird. So we'll see. I haven't added,
Yeah.
so that's with just my account. So we'll see. And now I'm going to add the family's, various iCloud accounts
Right.
to it as well, and see if that's where the issue came in. Maybe I don't know. Anyways, hopefully it all works.
It's funny. We usually talk about the sort of the Apple "it just works" paradigm, and I think most of the time that is true. But when you get into those weird edge cases, there's basically no recourse. You can't figure
Yeah.
out what's going on. You just kind of have to start over and start fresh and hope that solves it. I'm surprised that kind of stuff you were running into is actually a local thing and not like something in TV Plus, like on the cloud side, right? But
Yeah,
I guess something wasn't talking to something.
yeah, yeah.
My weird Apple issue that isn't games is, so I enabled the new Apple lossless playback on Apple Music because we've got the whole Apple One plan that includes arcade and everything. And consistently on my phone, when I've opened music for the first time to play something and I start 15 seconds into the song, it stops consistently. Have you been running into this too?
Only when
and
we're on remote, like on cellular or like away from. We had cellular disabled when we were camping and downloaded music. We thought, but yeah, we would all of a sudden we were like queuing up music to like we'd listen to the Lumineers often when we camp or whatever, just like some acoustic music, and it was just
Right.
like first 15 seconds and then stop, and then the next one 15 seconds stop. So
Interesting. So it's something with their buffering, but yeah, then after a couple of tries, then the little lossless badge will show up on the song playback display, and then it'll run fine. And then it'll run fine the rest of the time I'm using the music app that session. So it's like something in the cloud is like getting the wrong
like
file
pointing
or
to the
the
wrong
wrong
URL.
partial
Yeah.
file, and then it figures itself out after a little bit, but at first it's doing the wrong thing. I don't know what's going on with that. It's just a weird thing. I like you said, I probably just need to turn some stuff off and back on again. You know, the classic
No, it's
IT solution.
it's
Um,
bizarre. That's, I mean, it's good. I guess good to know that other people are experiencing that issue, because I was getting some serious
yes,
stink eye from my family for like saying Apple Music is great. Look at lossless music. Oh, great! And then
right.
we can't listen
And
to any
then
of the music.
it fails, and Apple, stop embarrassing me.
Exactly.
Jeez. Yeah.
So, well,
Um,
why don't we wrap up with a fun side of
yes.
Apple,
On a
Alto's
positive
Odyssey.
note. Yeah. So had you played any? I think there's two previous Alto's Odyssey games.
Yeah, I did. Whether I bought them or I can't remember if they're free with in-app purchase or whatever it was. Anyways, I played both the previous full versions of the games. I don't think I ever. I don't know if there's a wrapping of them really. It's kind of just a high score, achievement oriented gameplay, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a endless runner type game for sure. I think you can kind of unlock everything, which I don't believe I did on either of the first two games because there were
Yeah.
some of the later challenges that were just very difficult. But this Lost Cities is pretty much the same core gameplay. You're riding down a slope continuously. Um, new art style, new kind of setting. I think the characters are the same, at least so far. Although it looks like based on the Game Center achievements, there's maybe more characters to unlock that I haven't gotten to yet. They're doing more interesting stuff with like foreground objects that scroll by and briefly obscure parts of the level, like stone pinnacles or what have you,
Oh
or
yeah.
trees. Um, and there's a few things now that are new and interactive. So there are balloons that float up, and if you time your jump, you can bounce off the top of the balloon and do a flip kind of thing. You can unlock a board that allows you to wall ride. So there's certain background surfaces where you can kind of do like a jump and ride on the wall, and then jump and flip off the wall to kind of chaining your trick combos together.
Yeah.
So some it's one of those games that's just very very satisfying. You can mess up on the first jump and then you just start over and start a new run. And if you get really in the groove, you can go really far in the game and unlock all of the objectives as you go. um I've there's some various quest things. I've found all 10 map fragments, which gets me to the Lost City. I've unlocked the second character, Maya, which is a little better at flipping, so that's fun. I ran into a weird bug one of the times I died, which I sent to Snowman, the developers, with a little video where basically my character was stuck like between two parts of the level and just spinning continuously, saying and showing every possible "oh no, you died" message.
Yeah.
And it just went like this until I left the app. But they thanked me for reporting the issue, so that was pretty funny. Um,
They didn't send you a
sounds
free
like
like snow or snowboard or sandboard as a
yeah, I
compensation.
know. I need to get some Altos swag, some llama swag.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you try it on the TV or just on your iPad or what?
Yeah, I haven't yet. I've just been playing it on the phone, and like I said, my son has been playing on the iPad, and yeah, so he's been having fun with it. It's definitely a harder game for him, but like
Mhm.
this morning, he was really happy because he got the 10 backflips challenge, right? So he'd been working on that one for a while, and at age 7, like this kind of game can be really challenging, but he kind of did the stick to itiveness of it and was able to beat that during screen time.
Yeah. I love what I love about it. I think it just reminds me I do need to try it on the TV because I think it's just a gorgeous game to look at, and it is like one of
Yes.
those sort of ambient chill games that there's very little pressure. You get going and you're kind of like chaining stuff together, and there's that amount of pressure on yourself maybe, but otherwise you crash and then you just start over. And when you, especially if you're not really achievement oriented, achievement hunting, it's very chill. Soundtrack is great.
Yeah, the soundtrack's great, and there is also the Zen mode, which I think they added to the game, the original game, like after it had been out for a while.
Yeah.
But this one, it comes with it out of the box, or you might have to complete one of the early levels to get to it. But that one, there's no challenges, there's no death, there's no like really hard jumps. You just kind of surf forever and like look at the art and listen to the soundtrack. And if you die, you just tap and you're back at it. And I've played that a couple times as well. Right now, I am challenge hunting, but the appeal of kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the wholesome games, the cozy games, the low anxiety games. Yeah, it's like, oh, here's just a game where I'm just kind of relaxing. I'm tapping. I'm enjoying the music. Oops. Oh well. Keep going. Is a pretty appealing kind of gameplay.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, I'm gonna definitely re-download that one now that. Or replay that one, or I guess it's sort of like play that one because it is a different game, but revisit it anyways from the original.
It's a sequel.
Yeah,
And
pull that one out and definitely try hooking it up on the Apple TV too. Worth going through all the effort of syncing a controller to the TV anyways to try it out. Because that's I assume it doesn't have probably doesn't do remote play with the new remote. Most of them don't, so that's not an option.
No, which is a little sad because it is literally one button play, like you're just pressing and holding over and over again.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, Apple with tvOS has decided that they don't want developers who could, like Alto's Odyssey or Crossy Castle, I think we mentioned, that could be trivially done on the D-pad. They're just like, nah, let's not do it anymore.
Maybe they don't want wear and tear on their fancy new remote or something. I don't know.
Could be.
But all right, we're going to cut it short here because I have to go play IT support for speaking of screen time, figuring that out.
Very important.
You've got to run some meetings. And so we'll cover Tabletop Corner and whatever else comes in the next episode. So thank you for listening to 25 Cents, our video game podcast. You can find me on Twitter at iChris.
And you can find me on Twitter and most everywhere else as Ultra Nerd. That's NURD.
And you can find 25 Cents wherever you listen to podcasts. Of course, be sure to check out the Good Stuff Patreon, patreon.com/goodstuff. Join us in the Discord for $5 a month, I think is where it's at right now. And we will see you next episode. Thanks, Nick. Bye.
Thanks, Chris. Bye.
Almost kind of timed that right. The ending, too.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Thanks for watching, folks. If you're still out there, Marla, thanks for the comments. And we will put your would listen to the Star Trek podcast on the queue. It might be the only vote so far. I'm sure there's others, though.
Yeah, I'll have to sneak my way into guesting on one of the other Good Stuff podcasts about Star Trek, and then we'll use that as a backdoor pilot.
Yeah. Spin-off series. Nick's 25 Cent spin-off series into Star Trek and the video game Star Trek or something. I don't know.
We can call it 25 Century.
Okay.
Sorry, that was about as dad joke as I could dad joke.
It's only going to get worse, trust me. They like literally just fall out of your mouth as you get older, so don't worry.
Yep.
You got more to come. Okay, thanks, Nick. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you next time.